Miss Prerna Singh.
Yes. Thank you. Good evening, sir.
So you belong to Ranchi and you have a connection with Bokaro and with the Socioeconomic culture.
Yes.
And you BA Social Miranda. And you're working as and social work from there. And you are presently working as assistant manager in Bokaro.
No, sir. I used to work. I worked for 1 year and I resigned in 2019.
Okay.
And since then, I have been preparing for service officer.
Okay. Thank you for correcting me.
Very nice. What very interesting hobby is just quilling. What is quilling? Quilling is a form of paper craft. So where paper strips are rolled together, glued together to form certain patterns, and through that we can make certain 2D designs and 3D also. Like, what's the purpose for that? Use of that? It helps you to make something which is very sentimental to oneself. And some creativity, some creative designs.
Now, gender, I decided to ask about gender. In terms of sociology, is your subject optional?
Yes.
Gender and sociology, how do you link them? What is happening in the world today sociologically explained? Given the patriarchal mindset,
etc., how do you link the two and where are we headed?
I think sociology helps us to deeply analyze the concept of gender, and it helps us to differentiate between sex and gender. It helps us to look at the world in a more inclusive form. The difference between not just the men and women, but the variety of spectrum in terms of gender. So, looking together, sociology and gender helps us to move towards a very inclusive world, I would say.
And you think it's happening all over the world, inclusivity, and in India? What is the status in India?
I would say it's a very long-term process. So the process has initiated. In India also, with the decriminalization of Section 377, the process has been initiated. And India culturally, historically also has the tradition where the third gender was not only accepted, rather celebrated also. So, and with the colonialism and the post-colonial world, we are moving ahead with that mindset. Recently with the Supreme Court judgment, it was a very hopeful judgment. We were hoping for same-sex marriage legalization, which has not happened as of yet. But again, it is a significant step in this direction. The discourse has started. There's a lot of debate and discussion about it, and that is definitely a step in positive direction.
Excellent. But do you think patriarchy is responsible for this also? I mean, against women, yes, but against the other gender sort of identification, giving them their rights. Do you think patriarchy has a role to play in that as well, or patriarchal mindsets, let me put it?
Definitely, patriarchy is one of the larger reasons for this. And patriarchy not only affects, let's say, women or the third gender, but the men themselves. So this idea of patriarchy, of giving men the most power, and it also restricts men also. But definitely, patriarchy has an impact on the way we look at gender.
Worldwide.
Worldwide. Because patriarchy is not prevalent in India just, it is prevalent everywhere.
Everywhere. One quick question on COP28 and the environment and India's initiative of life. To tell me what is COP28 and what are the main takeaways? And life, what is India's life mission?
Okay, so Conference of Parties 28, it happened at UAE, UNFCCC conference, and one of the significant steps
was... What does COP stand for?
Conference of Parties. And one of the significant steps was the formation of Loss and Damage Fund. So the fund has now been functional. Of course, the amount which was initially granted, we have much lesser fund than that. But definitely something has been started. There was also the talk about global stock take, taking the stock of what the countries have been doing till now and what more needs to be done. So that's a parameter. we have established that parameter. It helps us to look at our success and what more needs to be done.
Right.
There was also talks of moving ahead from the fossil fuels. So around 90 countries have signed a pact. There's still a lot to be done in that direction. The pacts are not binding. So one of the drawbacks is that. Coming to the second question, the LIFE mission. So LIFE mission was given by the Prime Minister
What does
of
it stand
India.
for?
Lifestyle for, can I take a guess?
Yes.
It's a lifestyle for environment. I'm
Environment.
not
No,
very
that's-
sure about
Environment.
it. Yeah. So as the name suggests, it's about adopting a lifestyle which is where we are conscious of our environment, where we adopt a sustainable lifestyle, and that is what India has been promoting at the global platform.
Recycle.
Recycle is there.
Reuse.
This the small steps, the little steps that matter. So, for example, even switching off the lights when we are not in the room is a very small step, but it matters. So, a more sustainable lifestyle for environment.
Reduce, recycle, and
Reduce, recycle, refuse, reuse,
And reuse.
reuse.
not refuse.
Okay,
Reuse.
reuse. I'm sorry.
All right. Thank you.
Hi, Prerna. So you are from Bihar and sociology is an optional. So can you share your thoughts on caste census? This has been in the news for a while. So quickly your thoughts on caste census.
Caste census help us to determine the proportion of different castes in the population. Caste census as a tool for policy making is something which we need, because for any policy to be functional for targeting the right beneficiaries, data is needed, and caste census provides us that data. Given having said that, caste census has to be done cautiously. We have to be aware of the fact that it is not politicized, otherwise the purpose will be diluted. So as a policy making tool, I think it is a step in the right direction.
All right. There are sociologists like Professor Satish Deshpande who are of the view that merely counting will not really take us very far. So what else could be done in addition to caste census so as to do the necessary?
So caste census could be the first step, and beyond that, we need to do proper socio-economic demographic census to understand any policy and how it is benefiting the population. So let's say if we take the example of reservation policy, we have to make sure that not only a particular section of that particular population is getting the benefit of it. So what has been the impact of the policy after 10 or 20 years of implementation? A more detailed analysis has to be done. So, but caste census could be the first step in that direction.
Okay. Can you name a female Indian sociologist who has inspired you?
I would say the concept which was given by Leela Dubey, which is the earth and the seed, helped me to understand how the patriarchal system works and how the analogies are drawn in a better manner. So I was really fascinated by her work. So she's
What's the work?
the seed and the earth.
Where is it? Is it a paper? Is it a book that Leela Dubey has written?
So I have to go and check.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
See, now the parliament has passed a few very important laws last few days. What were those laws and what was the need to pass those laws?
So one of the laws was new telecommunication bill, one was the new postal service bill, and one was the overhauling of the criminal justice system.
So this overhauling criminal justice system, these laws were of maybe about 180 years, 170 years old. And what was the need to amend it now, and what are the major changes which have been made in those laws? Some few changes if you can highlight.
Yes, sir. So firstly, the need was definitely, as you mentioned, the laws were very old. It is said that they were colonial laws, and we have to move ahead from this colonial mindset, and the law does that, serves that purpose, starting with the changing of the name. So Indian Penal Code to Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, making it more Indianized. So that was the first purpose of changing the law. Secondly, as society is evolving, we also need to evolve our laws. The laws which Britishers framed were to control us, to rule over us. But now we are moving towards a more society which is reformative, which is inclusive. So that's why changes in law were required. Some of the changes which I can recall, firstly, defining the term such as terrorism, because before this we did not had a proper definition for the term. So the particular bill has defined the term terrorism. The bill has also providing certain provision for mob lynching. Since the instances have been there in news, a mob lynching is something that cannot be allowed in a society, and the law strictly provides strict provisions for the same. Thirdly, the laws also provide certain definition for cruelty of women by the family members. So what does cruelty includes? So the law has provided proper definition. So a lot of...
Just one last question.
Okay, sir.
Do you know the difference between current account deficit and fiscal deficit?
So current fiscal deficit basically means the extra borrowing which the government needs to do to ensure that the budget deficit remains zero. So the borrowing part is fiscal deficit. Current account deficit, and there is a capital account deficit. Current account and capital accounts, there are two types of account. And current account deficit includes our trade deficits, our remittance, and services, which includes trade and service and merchandise.
Larger fiscal deficit is good for a country like ours, or not good for a country?
So larger fiscal deficit is definitely not good. India is a welfare country, which means that it has to spend a lot for the welfare of the people. At the same time, larger fiscal deficit also points towards a decreasing economic situation. It will give a bad impression to the investors. So that's why we have a FRBM Act, where we are targeting to reduce our fiscal deficit to 4.5% by 2025.
Thank you.
You come from a state where coal is abundantly found.
Yes, sir.
Right. And how much is India's energy dependent on coal?
So if I cannot recall the exact percentage, but if I can take a guess, it's roughly around 70%, 60 to 70% on fossil fuels. A larger portion of India's fuel comes from coal, but again, I'm not able to recall the exact percentage.
Why is India recently pushing for more coal power plants? What is the international pressure?
So international pressure, firstly, why India is pushing towards more coal plant? India is a developing country. It is still on that development trajectory. So more developed we become, our energy requirements are going to increase. And to fulfill that requirement, fossil fuels per se and coal, most importantly, is needed. So that's why India is pushing for more coal plants. When we look at the global scenario, in terms of climate change, in terms of meeting the Paris Agreement targets, Western countries, especially EU and USA, are more pushing towards renewable energy. But the level of development they have and the development nature we have, we are still on that path. So that's why India cannot completely transform into a renewable energy country. We need coal and other fossil fuel resources.
And what about nuclear?
So nuclear energy presently constitute around 2 to 3%, which is very less. Nuclear fusion is something that India has certain nuclear plants, and where nuclear fusion energy is being tested. Again, it is not sufficient to fulfill the requirement of a large country like India. It can only substitute, but it cannot replace the fossil fuel energy.
Dependence on fossil fuel.
Dependence on fossil fuel energy.
Easily available?
Nuclear fuel.
Imports are required for this?
No, sir. A lot of technology, a lot of nuclear fuel is also imported. India is also importing the technology with countries like Russia and France. And we are still researching for nuclear fission. We have not achieved that. The world is researching in that direction. So there's a lot of drawbacks when it comes to nuclear energy.
Recently, last question. Okay. Recently, Supreme Court, in case of a woman who went to the Supreme Court for termination of her pregnancy, it was not allowed. So what is your take on it? Should the woman be the controller of her body, of her fetus, or a court of law should be the arbiter in that case?
So the basic argument this particular case highlights is that of pro-life and autonomy, body autonomy. In my opinion, a woman should have the autonomy on her body. She should decide whether she wants to have a child or not. Because even if we talk about giving birth to a child, what constitutes a life? Life does not stop after giving birth. We also have to be responsible to ensure that the child is given all the facilities and a proper life. A woman who is not wanting to conceive a child or not wanting to give birth to a child should not be forced into doing it. After childbirth, there are many complications that arise in women's body. There are many mental issues. Even if she is physically fit to give birth, mentally she might not be. And these factors have to be considered.
So, in your opinion, the Supreme Court judgment was faulty?
I would say technically the judgment was right, because as per the law we have, after 25 weeks of pregnancy, it depends upon the verdict of the board, the medical board. And medical board technically gave the right decision because the woman was physically fit, is physically fit to give birth. But what we need to look is beyond the physical health, the mental health aspect also. And it's not just about giving the birth, it's about giving a proper life to the child. So are we giving that to the child?
But you know, when the fetus is alive, ticking,
Yes, sir.
you know, a woman always knew up to 14 weeks she had the choice of doing it. But she delayed the decision till the 26th week. Was it correct?
So if I may...
And it would have endangered her own life as well.
So in this particular course, if I can, in this particular case, if I can recall, the woman is suffering from a special medical condition because of which she was not aware that she is pregnant. She is already mother of 2 children and she did not wanted to have a 3rd child. And I think as soon as she discovered that she is pregnant, she went to the court, but ultimately the court has denied her this permission, if I'm correctly recalling it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
जी प्रेरणा जी, आपसे ये पूछना है, you are into nukkad nataks.
Yes, sir.
What advantage do they have on non-nukkad nataks?
Right. Nukkad nataks or street plays are a very informal way of conveying a message. It involves entertainment plus a social awareness message. It helps us to gather the audience, attract the audience, interact with them.
Yeah. A much shorter answer is,
Okay.
the purpose is to convey a social message,
Okay, sir.
right?
Okay.
Which long plays do not.
Which long
The
plays
purpose
do not-
is this,
Yes, sir.
and therefore you have to repeat it at several junctures, several chaurahas.
Yes, sir.
And you use some sort of comedy, some sort of
Story.
what is that thing called?
Music, interact with the crowd.
Vaudeville, whatever you have to attract the audience. All right. Yes.